So the next book I read was Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth, which is a poetry book. I really liked this. Again, well-known poet, really great stuff. I mean, I just implore you to read it. So the next book I read was Because You Deserve Love. I actually thought it was a poetry book, but it's more of a book of how to deal with like different aspects of breakup. So it's like to do it before, after, during, like, you know, when you're going through a shitty relationship, after, finding new love, all those sorts of things. It was really interesting. I was going through none of those things at the time, but I just wanted to read it. The next book I read was The Power. I feel like this book was so popular last year, and I'm so glad I read it. It is one of my favourite books, I have to say. Definitely one of my favourites in 2017 as well. The book is great. There wasn't a part that I thought, oh, this is boring. So good. Actually reminds me a bit of The Handmaid's Tale. They're completely different, but the same. Amazing. Definitely read that book. Definitely pick it up. The next book I read was The Gift of Change. It's by Marianne Williamson. Again, one of those self-helpy books. I've had it in my basket for ages, so I just decided to pick up and read it. I thought it was alright. To be honest, I wouldn't read it again. I thought it was really, really long. And not that helpful. Oh, The Sun and Flowers is on here. It's something that I have read, so yes, I spoke about that. The Sun and Her Flowers. Definitely recommend that. The next book I read was The Course of Love. I'm a huge fan of the School of Life on YouTube, and the founder is Elaine de Bottom. He's really popular, like, you come across him in loads of things. And The Course of Love is like a novel and a bit of a self-help book all in one. And it just talks about relationships and love and sort of how we navigate through relationships. I know he's got a couple more books, and obviously like, he's the founder for the School of Life, so definitely encourage you guys. I will leave the link below for that website as well. Definitely a book I'm going to reread, and definitely something that like opened my eyes a lot, of how like I view relationships as well, and how I view myself, and how much more I can put into myself, and sort of how much more love I can give myself, so that I don't have to depend on other people for it. Definitely recommend. The next book I read was The Versions of Us. I really like this book again. It's another book that reminded me of One Day. It is basically another similar to One Day, but it's really good. I think it went on for a bit too long, and you sort of, well, I sort of started to, like in the beginning, middle, I was fine with the different characters, or the same characters, but I was fine with their different storylines. Towards the end, I just started to get really confused with, oh, is it now Eve? I think her name is Eve or Eva. Is it Eva in this story now or this story? But it's a really good book, and definitely encourage you to read it. I think I will do a review of this book because I really enjoyed it. The book after that I read was The Girl of Incan Stars. I actually know this has a different name as well, so I'm not sure if it has a different name in the UK or the US, but I'll put it across the screen. I really liked this book. It was easy to read. Not something I would usually read, and I know it was in my Amazon basket for a long time, and I know that's probably because I saw a quote somewhere else or saw it reviewed somewhere, and that's why I wanted to read it. It was alright. So the next book that I read was Things Fall Apart, and this is actually part of the African trilogy, so I actually need to go and read the other two, but I haven't done that yet. I actually really enjoyed this book. It contained many, many different stories. It's about Africa, and I think this one is actually specifically based in Nigeria. Yes. It's based in Nigeria, and it's just sort of about the different traditions and different tribes, and how Africa started and how Africa is, obviously, but not like how it is now. Like, obviously it probably is like that in some parts of Africa, but it's just a really nice book. It's nice to also read books from African authors. I thought the book was okay. I think for me to fairly judge the whole thing, I'd have to read the other two, so definitely going to try and pick that up this year. The book I read after that was Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. So I think this is the fourth book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, and it's the one by the sort of new author-ish. I actually really like this. I thought the book was super long though, and because it's been a while since I read the other books, I'm not sure if it's still in that same sort of pattern where it goes into loads of great detail about things and it can be a bit mundane sometimes. I actually really enjoyed it, but it was hella long. I like how everything came about, and I like the justice and the story and the difference, and like the main story is obviously focused on Elizabeth. but I like the little sideline stories they had as well. The next book I read was Why the Dutch Are Different. So I went to Amsterdam in 2017, I also went in 2016. I really love Amsterdam, and I'm just intrigued by how different their lifestyle is. So I think actually what I was searching for was a Dutch cookbook, because I really like some of the food that they have. Even though when I was there I really didn't eat that much Dutch food. I'm not sure waffles and like apple pie counts as Dutch, traditionally Dutch. I ate in like Indonesian places and like burger places and Chinese places, Asian places. So anyway, and then I think I stumbled across this book and I was like, ooh, let me read that. I really like this. It's really interesting. It is actually written by, I think, a British man who then moves over to the Netherlands. He doesn't live in Amsterdam. He lives in, I think, Utrecht, maybe. He just talks about different things from Amsterdam to past. It's really interesting to read, but obviously bear in mind it is from the perspective of a British man, you know, who moves over there, and then I think he, in the end, I think he marries a Dutch woman, or he's with a Dutch woman. I know that for a fact, but definitely good. I encourage people to read it if you're interested in Amsterdam. It's just really interesting about how their city came about, especially because you know that they have loads and loads and loads of bicycles and things like that. Like, it's just, if you're interested in why their lifestyle is so different to us and how they're so relaxed about things, definitely encourage you to read it. The next book I read was Wonder When You'll Miss Me. The book is so battered because I had this water bottle that was just spinning in my bag all the time, and this book was in it and it was just getting soaked all the time. She was in a mental institute for a bit, and then I said I wouldn't do this. I said I wouldn't talk about what the books were about or go into depth with it, and then I instantly started doing that. But yeah, she's in a mental institute and then comes out, is in school, and then runs off to join the circus. All very random. I would say you could give this book a miss, not gonna lie. I didn't hate it, but now that I've read it, I would never read it again. So I was back on my poetry vibe again by the end of 2017. So the next book I read, picked up again, with someone who's super popular on Instagram, and that is Nikita Gill. So I picked up Wild Embers by her. I think this definitely just was really recent, so it came out, I think I ordered it like 5 days after it came out without really realising. Loved this. I usually, when I read a poetry book, I like all the poems in there, and I just love it. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, I would be spamming my Instagram stories with these books. But I think the one, I know there was definitely a section that I didn't like. I know I like this book so much and I really thought one of my friends would like it, so I gave it to her for Christmas. But the one section I didn't like was the bits that were about, like, I guess, Disney characters and stuff. I didn't actually grow up on Disney, so for me, these things aren't a thing. But like, yeah, I didn't really like a lot of the poems, like this part, Sleeping Beauty, Alice in Wonderland, Snow White, all these sort of things. There's one poem that's actually really nice, which is called Heroes, which is really, really nice, so I guess it's part of that, but those ones I didn't like it. Definitely recommend this. Pick this up, read it, so good. The next book I read after that was The Stranger. I've had this to read for ages and ages in my Amazon basket. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Usually I don't really like classics, like I read them and I'm like, what? And I think for me it's one of those things, like, it's a relatability thing. I definitely recommend this book. Read it. The reason I like this book is because the people see this guy as like, people think the guy, the main character in the book, doesn't really have a lot of emotions, and they're just a bit like, why doesn't he respond in a certain way? Like, you know, the normal way to respond to this is this, X, Y, Z. I just really liked it because sometimes not everyone has these 10,000 feelings that you expect them to have towards a situation. Sometimes it's very long, and I just like the way he reacted. I like the way this character was, and you know, things were happening and he was like, it is what it is. Like, acting X, Y, Z way is not going to change the outcome. It might make you feel better about what has happened, but actually doesn't change anything, and this is how I am. Love this book, definitely read it. The next book I read was Homegoing. I kept mixing the name up of this book, calling it Homecoming, whatever. This book is set in Ghana, and it's written by a Ghanaian author. I really love this book. It's like gone all the way back from like tribes and villages and stuff, and then it sort of follows different family lines, and just sort of now how we get to like modern day. I really enjoyed reading this book, and I would encourage everyone to read it. I want to read more books that are by sort of African authors, or that talk more about Africa and things like that. So, and I had this book in my sort of Amazon basket. You'll hear a trend in this, or you probably would have heard, because I'm new in the end. I've had everything in my Amazon basket for ages, so I just decided to read it. But very glad I picked this up, and I would encourage anyone to pick this up as well. It's really good, very interesting. It has so many different stories that I think you can find one of your favourites, but you know, it does go in like chronological order as well. The next book I read was I Hope This Reaches Her in Time. I think that's what it's called, yeah. Which is a poetry book, yay! This is by R.H. Sin. It doesn't actually say it on here, but he's super popular again on Instagram. And his wife, Samantha King, again, is very popular on Instagram. Just great poetry, and this is more about to do with like love and females, like, you know, dealing with heartbreak and things like that, and just sort of loving yourself and not letting anyone sort of tread all over you. Really like this book. I'm really a massive fan of this kind of poetry as well. Just like, I guess, in terms of this mod poetry that's being released now, I have loads of favourites in terms of poetry, and I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that, but definitely encourage you to pick up this. He has loads of books, which I am going to pick up, because I just seem to go to Waterstone during my lunch break and be like, I want this book, I want this book. So yeah, sometimes I pick up physical copies of books. Other times, I just read it on my Kindle. So the final book that I read in 2017 was Bad Times in Buenos Aires. I really want to go to South America, like I have to make it happen this year. I think I was just browsing books to do with people to do with South America, and one of these came up. This book was okay, but it has a lot of, well, it's got about an average of 3 ratings on Goodreads, and you'll see the comments are mainly to do with the fact that it's like a Brit that goes over there, basically sort of slams the country. I mean, this book is written like in the 90s or something, so it's not about the country now. But I enjoyed the book. I found it interesting. It had its pros. It had its pros. It had its cons. But it's a really good insight. And at the end of the day, it was someone's experience. I don't think you can knock it. I think some of the way she experienced it is because of her privilege. But overall, I thought it was a really good book. Those are all the books that I read in 2017. There's probably a couple more, but they're probably like just other poetry books that I read. But yeah, that's the majority of the books I read. I'm astounded, because if you take away the poetry books, let's say on average the poetry books are about 10. If you take away the poetry books, I read about 40 books this year. And usually, I think I said this at the beginning of the video, but 2 years ago, and you know, prior to that, I used to set myself targets to read like 25 books, 30 books. So I've stopped doing that, because your girl has a full-time job. I did that time, I think, yeah, about 3 years ago is when I started working full-time. And I don't need to set myself a target of books to read, I just need to read the books that I want to read. But it just seemed, without setting myself a target, I managed to read loads of books. I'm excited to see what sort of books I'll pick up this year. I definitely want to pick up the books from the African trilogy that I mentioned earlier, and then the Elena Ferrante series. I think those are the only 2 sort of series things that I read, but anything else that I thought of read in a series, I want to finish them off this year. Other than that, I read some more poetry books, write some more poetry myself. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate that it's a very sort of random one. It's more about, I read this book, I liked it, didn't like it, and there's no sort of context and review, but I really do hope that if the title or the image sort of sparked your interest, that you'll go and check it out. I will leave my Goodreads link below, so you can go check out that sort of year of my books, and then you'll be able to see what ratings I gave them. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please comment, please like the video, please subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Until next time.